And so we're not going to do necessarily the astrology or like the energy work today. I mean, to the degree we're doing energy work, you all understand why. But we're gonna tackle in some maybe difficult concepts that some of you may feel hopefully expanded in the understanding, or maybe you will leave with more questions that you came in for yourself, which would be wonderful, because something that I want to make sure that we're on the same page and that you understand is that this is a space of horizontal relationships, which doesn't mean that we have to agree on everything. And I'm going to speak as if I have a strong opinion on some things, and I will speak of it as if it's a fact. Because based on my experience, based on where I came from, for me right now, it's a fact. And I will be speaking to it confidently. But the point for the horizontal relationships, and I will speak more about vertical and horizontal difference, is that we don't follow blindly, and at the same time, we don't reject blindly, right? So this is the space for you to take on the ideas, to see how they sit in with you, and we will have more opportunity to kind of discuss and ask questions. And this is also not the space where we need to argue with each other, because it just comes from the same place. If we want to argue, if we want to prove that somebody is wrong, it's still a vertical relationship. But to be given your input, that's why it's always a dance, right? To be given your input, especially when it's welcomed, it's always bringing more expansion into the conversation and to both parties. So it's beautiful to speak in this way. And I think the world is still learning to talk this way, because we need a lot of emotional maturity to be able to speak this way. And by emotional maturity, I mean we're able to hear things that may be unpleasant to us, to our ego, and we're able to also discern some things for ourselves, and also acknowledge where we are maybe, you know, not being in our integrity, put it, you know, kind of generally. And this is coming from a beautiful, short, brief, discussion with my beautiful friend yesterday. And so the theme that's arising today is the theme that I kind of spoke to, of the feminine power. I wanted to speak to this topic because this is, basically a theme of my life, me kind of discovering and understanding and what it means. And I think it's the medicine that many of us need. So I will be speaking to it today. But more clarity came yesterday during the conversation with the friend who was able to speak vulnerably what she saw and where she felt a little bit of resistance to what my perspective was. And that just opened up a new horizons for me, and I expanded into it. So I'm going to be bringing some of those things today. So I'm very grateful for this. And I'm going to start with, since we are a group of women and we are a group of very strong women over here, what do you think makes a woman fulfilled? And you can start writing in the chat box. I'm going to be looking. What do you think makes a woman fulfilled? And, I'm not going to be grading you here right now, but I just want to kind of see the thought process, right? I know it's the end of the day. So you can start doing some blurbs right now, and then maybe, we'll kind of get into this. There's no right or wrong answer. What makes you fulfilled? You are a woman, so you can start from that. You don't have to answer for others. While you're writing those things, that's the beauty. I always preach that there is no one way of doing a woman. And this is why I think we have such great polarization in the world. Either like polarization, are you doing everything like you have to be very feminine, or you have to be a boss babe, or I don't know, you have to be a stay-at-home mom, or and take care of your children, or no, this is not the right way. So it's like everyone has to find their own way, and it's going to be different for all of us you know, throughout our lifetime, throughout our progression. So it's not one answer for you for the rest of your life. So self-worth, creativity, giving and receiving love. To express her soul into the world and to be received. That's my theme. I mean, all of them actually. It's self-worth, creativity. I mean, that's why we're all gathered here, because we have very similar things. Self-love, independence, feeling desired. Yes, baby. Feeling attractive. Let's not hide this. Because oftentimes in our strength and independency, we kind of like start disconnecting from those juicy parts of ourselves, but it's such an important component that brings, there's one way to think of it is like yes, of course, you can feel self-love and you can nourish yourself and feel, you know, beautiful, and you have to do it without dependency on others. But there's just so much more fire and vibrancy that comes in when we are being adored by somebody else. Like when someone is adoring us, that's a whole new level that a woman is discovering for herself. And you have felt it probably when you, even if it's not for a long time, in relationship where you were like, wow, you just felt like something is so special about you. But the beauty is that it's that your energy that was coming out. It's not that because of them you felt this way, but they were helping you to unlock your own essence, that vibrancy that a woman carries. So nurturing, sharing love, sensuality, admiration of her beauty. And at the core of all of this, how can a woman have it all possible? Like, how can she feel, you know, what's creativity? How can she give love? Say, for example, in this, when she's burned out, when she say has children, right? So she's supposed to be giving children her love. She's supposed to maybe giving her partner her love. She wants to, but she's also working really hard. She's burning out, like she's running herself very thin. She's stretching herself very thin. Where is all of this self-love and the kind of where does those resources come from? That's a good question. I think all of us need to kind of ask, because we kind of know what we want, even to feel self-worth. When you're feeling down, where are you gonna find it? It's quite difficult, you know, and life is ups and downs, and it's not like one way. And so what I'm leading to, that in order for us to be in all of this vibrancy and all of those things that you spoke about, right? To give love, to receive love, nurturance, you know, sensuality and independency, you know, even have, so here's the word, power. We need to have the power that it's basically we're plugged in. It's like your, you know, you power an electric device and now it's working. If you're not plugged into some sort of resource, you don't have all of this that you want to give. Like you have this vessel, but it's not moving the energy through. There's no energy that's coming through to give love, to even nurture yourself, to give yourself self-love, to have the, you know, power to be in the strength of your soul, despite of all of the resistance that's in the world. Let me tell you, you have to have a lot of power for that, Isabel. And so today we're going to talk about the topic of power and empowerment. And before we go in, I want to ask you what comes in first when I speak of this word, the word power. Now, again, there is no right or wrong. What comes into you? What is associated for you with power? Now, start just bringing those things out for me on the in the chat. And it could be a mixture of very conflicting things. So don't think that it's, you know, you're now kind of tapping into the collective subconscious agency over your body. What's agency over your body? Can you unpack that a little bit more? It's really interesting. The sun, the womb. I love this answer. It's very self-control, confidence, self-esteem, self-love, boundaries. Anyone has a negative sense of power, like when somebody is in a position of power? When, you know, like we have this, you know, power corrupts. Control, energy. So control and energy, but not energy control, or is it? I don't know if I read this. Confidence, self-esteem, self-love, boundaries, power, right? Maybe both. Yeah. So when I speak of power, because we really need to connect on the definitions, right? Something that we can get into a big argument about pretty much nothing if we use one word and have different definition to it. We can be arguing about something that we actually agree on, but because we have different definitions to this one word, we may be looking like we're disagreeing. Authority, I love this. Authority, also like a good question, like what's even authority? Like, is it the negative or positive? But for each of you, what kind of response does it bring in, right? The ability or inability to control. So interesting. What happens to you and your body? Agency over it, that's agency over your to ability, what happens to you and your body. When you are in a birthing process, do you have agency over your body? Like, does have the ability to control what happens to you and your body? Are you able to control it? I'm speaking, I know some of you are, yes, you do. Well, I think it's a co-creative process. I don't think you have full control over it. There's, you literally you can, not that, and you also don't have the control, the direct control over your baby developing and all of that stuff. There is indirect control, which is through your connection to the divine feminine, to the goddess and all of that kind of stuff. But literally you don't, because you can be as prepared as you can, as wise of the woman, and still things may not fully go the same way. And that's the beauty, because feminine is not about control. Feminine is the ability to surrender to the chaos. And somehow the order comes there. And we're going to speak today a little bit more. So you may even have like a notebook by your side, because I'll be dropping some ideas and maybe some thoughts you would feel like you want to think more of later on. So we live in a very masculine world. So I'm not surprised a lot of control came into the game. So here's the thing. Here's my view. Power. Look at just, you know, the earth. What gives power? Wind, sun, right? Water, like the, you know, rivers, ocean. What gives power? Those are renewable resources. What gives power also like gas and all of the other oil, those are limited resources. And this is where you can already split. The masculine way, the masculine tends to use quickly the limited resources. So most of the world right now is based on the limited resources. It's quick, easy, and it does its job, but it's not long-term. The feminine is all about the renewable, where it sometimes takes a little bit longer, you know, in the moment, but then on the long run, it's benefiting not only you here right now, but also, you know, the generations. And so when you put, so for me, the power, right? For me, the power is just energy. So going back to the definition. Where I'm going to put that energy, that's a different question, right? But it's that fuel that goes into the car. for example. Or, you know, that charges my phone. That's power, like literally, physically, right? It's that we call it power, like when we're out of power, there is no electricity. So it's just that fuel, some sort of fuel, that feeds something to live, feeds something to function. So it's your energy, right? Some sort of energy that feeds you to function in this case, right? So empowerment, it means you are quite open for those resources, you know, to feed you so that you can function to the best of your ability. And, you know, disempowered is when we're closing off some, you know, putting some brackets to, and that, you know, power is not flowing through. We also, you know, we have the statement of like burning out, right? When we are using the resources so much and we are not refilling them, especially common for women. So we use the resources, we do not refill them. We use them in a masculine manner, which doesn't work for us. Many of us understand we're cyclical beings, so we're not meant to run on the, you know, straight line. And so we don't know how to refill the resources, and then we go, you know, down to zero, to where we don't want anything and nothing has its meaning, because we were not going on the trajectory of what's meaningful for us. We just took over someone's ways of operation, which makes sense, because if you think of this historically, if women, and it's in our DNA, haven't been really encouraged to connect to their power. And there were centuries when we were not only not encouraged, but threatened if we were to connect to our power, right? Then when all this sort of like feminine movement starts to come in, how did it start to come in? It just looks, okay, how do they connect to their power? Those guys over there, how do they, you know, deal in the world? I'm just going to do the same as they do, which makes sense. That's natural evolution, because what we see, we just repeat. And then 50 years later, we're like, oh, actually, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me, because it brings me to a compromise. Yes, I may be independent, strong, but my health is not well. I'm not able to get pregnant, if that's, you know, my desire. My relationships suck, and overall, I just feel like I'm just kind of doing something mindless, and it doesn't feed my soul. Right? And there's nothing wrong. It was a step in our evolution, in our coming to our own power, because our power is in our body. If for the man, they power, and for the masculine, the power is through achievement, the mastery. Then for the women, I'm going to talk about the mastery also, but it's really important to that, you know, for that quiet inner wisdom, the womb, somebody said, right? The heart, to connect to that part of ourselves, to then refill ourselves, to then know when to say no, to unplug, to kind of go in, and also to find what fills us up, also to find the holes that we have that make us lose our power. All of the doubts, you know, all of the, you know, old traumas, all of the competition, the criticism of each other, and, you know, self-hatred. I mean, you know, I'm sure you're aware of all of that stuff very closely with some of those things, right? So it's a deep work, and this is where we need mastery, where we need discipline, in this place of, oh, how do I stay true to my feminine essence? How do I discover, despite that everyone doesn't see it, and they're like, what are you talking about? You are just as everyone else. Like, what do you need? You know, only some body parts is the difference, you know? So it takes humongous stress, because we're going against the grain. And so again, we need boundaries. We need strong self, like inner core. We need the mastery. We need sharp mind to see where we're being manipulated, but all in service of that inner truth and deepening that inner truth, constantly deepening that inner, inner space and unlocking more and more of the power. So if in Sanskrit we can say power, right? In Hindu philosophy, although to me it's so much more, or in Tantra, what I practice, Shakti is the power, right? Shakti is the power and Shiva is the consciousness. Obviously, all of us are that. But because we've been so much top, head oriented all in the world, I always call it, need to grow the second leg. We need to grow the second leg. We need to connect to the power, because consciousness is the one that controls the power. But if you have no energy, you can't control anything. There's, you're just like at zero. So, and this beautiful dance, right? And this is where the Tantra comes in. And this is where that kind of like sexual interaction, just of the energies within the yin and yang. How are you able to control this extremely powerful energy? And with that also to, open yourself up to, because once we start deeply connecting to that power, we get scared. Especially if those of us who haven't been connecting to the feminine power, we get scared because it can destroy everything. That's how strong it is. And when we don't know how to control it, it can destroy. And so naturally there's, in some, spiritual communities, sometimes they say like, don't let Kundalini rise, all of that stuff, because it's dangerous, it can hurt you. And we are over here in this community, don't ever do anything to push something, because we don't need to be anywhere. We don't need to be anywhere. We just need to be in ourselves. And that kind of opens up. But it's a beautiful dance. At the same time, I don't mean we have to stay passive and delusional to our own, ego games. So I have never done this before, but what's coming in for me this morning came in strongly that I have to share a little bit about my personal story. Why I'm so passionate about about this kind of topic, where I'm coming from, like my background, so you can understand a little bit my philosophy based on my background. Maybe it will be entertaining, but to be honest with you, I have never shared this even with my friends. Not that I don't, maybe they know bits and pieces, but it's not something that I ever had like a need to share, or there was an opportunity for it to kind of give that kind of like full story. And I don't think I had a full language, because it's just so complex and there's just always so much. I always felt like I'm just gonna bore people with this. But for me, my vulnerability comes in today as comes in strongly, and that's my inner, like that feminine that comes in, that tells me like I have to do this. Because here's also something about the relationship with the feminine. Her vulnerability is the leader. What we'll end with talking about the feminine empowerment, and feminine leadership is necessary, critical in this time. And yes, I may have global kind of vision for things and for my life. You may, have something. I'm not saying that all of us need to go out there and like create something huge, although I do think in my community, women are, they have some big goals for their life, but it doesn't matter. Even in just your circle, even in just yourself, right? So my path is deeply with the feminine. but it's not so much of just airy fairy, as you can already see, you know. Like, and nothing wrong about airy fairy, but it's like, you know, just flowing dresses and stuff like this. It's integrated with the masculine. In 2013, I had what I call I have been kissed by the goddess. I had a brief pregnancy at the time when I was sick with all of the things that women oftentimes have as far as the women's health. And I was told I cannot get pregnant, but I did. And that pregnancy didn't last for a long time. It ended itself, but that was the first call of the feminine to be like, hey, like, what are you doing? At that time, I was, you know, I was very much on the academia path. I was studying math and psychology. I was working in a cognitive neuroscience lab. I was preparing to go for my PhD. I was just kind of like thinking, yes, this is what I want. And I was constantly running, constantly, very heavy intellectually. And then this kind of thing happened to me. And I, you know, obviously through hormones and through many things, I started to like tune in to be like, whoa, like, where's my life going? Do I really want all of this? Like, I couldn't even, because I had to go like to a hospital because the pregnancy wasn't ending by itself. It ended by itself, but it had to be removed. So I had to go through the operation. It was horrible. And at the same time, I had a million of responsibilities that I couldn't handle. And it was like first thing for me that I couldn't handle my responsibilities. Everything was dependent on me. And I was like, I don't want this kind of life for the future. Like I started to kind of connect. So that was my, you know, crisis moment. And so shifting the meanings of like where I'm going and what do I want for myself. And later that year, I was already deep into yoga, but I started to deepen into the kind of philosophy of yoga and the science of yoga. And I like to say I had a spiritual awakening in a math class. It's hard to explain, but it was a deep, high level of the math. And I saw God in that, in the fractals. Like I saw it. I can't explain it. It was already because I think I was kind of like in more an embodied state. And I mean, I was studying humans for a long time and I was agnostic for a very long time. But at that time, I was like, yes, there is some sort of like intelligence. There is some sort of intelligence that everything is kind of around or built by, or I don't know. And so at that time, before then, because I was always like so idealistic, had this big vision, like we need to change the world. By then I already had this, you know, another crisis. I go through growths quickly, so crises come in quickly too, where I was like, whoa, like the cycles of living are continuously repeating themselves. The wars are continuously coming back. There's always somebody fighting and there's somebody, you know, trying to stop it. And it's like, where's the end? And I didn't see the end in just doing some activist work. And I was like, okay, like the only, you know, end is from within. Like it's something has to come, like that ripple and effect from within. That came to me even before science. And so I went into science. Then I kind of got disillusioned by the science because I saw how things can get tweaked, and I'm not going to get into too much of the details there. So I went to the nonprofit world. Well, you know, at least there we can do some, you know, good stuff. So I stayed in the nonprofit world for a big nonprofit for a while. I had a very, you know, kind of prosperous sort of future in there, but I just couldn't feel like I'm creating the impact that I want. Like I wanted to be more close to people, to touch them, to see that what I'm doing actually changes things. And it's not just kind of giving the money because, you know, it's, you kind of want to give the tools, the way for people to change themselves, and not just to kind of have this momentary help. And before that, I already did business administration. So obviously I was disillusioned by business as well. So I went on a big, I left that organization in 2016. I was already deep into the spiritual journey, all of like the, star system remembrance. If you don't know what it is, I'm not going to get into it. But if you know all this interterrestrial lives and remembering yourself in those times, etc. All of that was happening. Reiki, astrology, I was studying all of this stuff, but I didn't know how to really apply it, how to kind of come out of this, being employed by somebody into like being, in my own sort of flow and directly impacting. And I went on a big world trip for a year, landed in Hawaii, stayed there, lived there for a while. That's my beautiful, I call it the home of my soul, at least on this planet. And then I had to come back to New York for some things. And like I said, I go to through crises often. So I came into another crisis in my relationship, and I realized this relationship cannot continue anymore because we are too much in compromise. There's too much of dominance, involved. And I was more of like, basically later, of course, I saw that I was the empath narcissistic relationship, classic stuff, all of that. I think many of you know as well in your personal experience. And so I had to leave the relationship. It was very difficult. It took 2 years for the whole thing to kind of come through because I was also married. And I landed on the ashram where I currently live. Many of you maybe met me over here. That's since 2018, I live here. And of course, this is where a lot of solitude came in, especially, for me to go deeper into my healing work. And something about me is that I haven't really done a lot of therapy. I think I had only 3 months of therapy in 2013 when I got pregnant. Then after that, somehow, like the person with whom I worked left, and then a new one came. It just felt like she couldn't touch on my depths. And I'm not against therapy. I think it's beautiful, but I guess my path was for me to discover, other tools and techniques and, unlock my personal wisdom. So I always seek help. I always work with people, but it wasn't, through that modality. But this last 5 years and a half have been very deep into the healing. That's where a lot for me, the embodiment come in. I also want to speak a little bit about my childhood, like what's the healing, what is it for? Because I had a normal childhood, but I think it's not, normal for me, but I think not so much for the common, person, even though I completely understand that everyone has their own traumas, and I tend to attract people who have received their share of pain because we can connect on that level and I can help them too. But I was just basically, I was born into the 4 generations of single mother, household. So there was just one girl for 4 generations. So I saw that when I was a little kid, I saw the pattern. Thank goodness I had the ability to see the, kind of the bigger patterns. I also saw social stupidity very early on because I was left to myself, and my mother had a very bad alcohol addiction. So did my father, but I never knew my father. And so he was a ghost in my life. My mom wasn't available, at all. She couldn't even sustain her life. So that kind of state of addiction, we barely even spoke. So I observed her with extremely like bright and beautiful, like she was so bright and beautiful, like in her potential. And I saw how that was fading away. I also had my grandmother who was just basically carrying everyone on her shoulders, and also my great grandmother. So I was the 4th generation. My great grandmother was a dark witch. We didn't have a very good relationship with her, but I did receive some of her gifts now as I'm, as I look back at it. So, and everyone was just so busy with their life. Some people were just incapable of, anything, like my mom. So I was just left to myself from pretty much the beginning. And so all of the questions of abandonment, body fear of safety, sexual trauma, like all of that stuff I had, except what I got spared of is too much of family conditioning. When your parents tell you how you need to live your life. So I'm very grateful. I know on a soul level, I chose this kind of experience. All of us did. I truly believe this. But for me, it was, I guess I had enough of like spiritual strength to persevere and go through that darkness, because it was quite dark. And the more older I was getting, and I'm talking about like 7 to 8 years old, the more freedom I was receiving, I was feeling like, okay, things are getting better. So by the time I was a teenager, I was like, nothing hurts me. It's like, it's all, it's all good. Yes, Tara, I can handle whatever comes in. So thank goodness I had very positive outlook to life. I don't know, I wouldn't survive it otherwise. And of course, I saw my mother basically fading away and dying and all of that stuff. So by the time I was 19, 20, I moved to the United States. Nothing planned, it just came in kind of quickly. Nobody was waiting for me, nobody was inviting me, no green cards or anything like this, no language either. But it was just too small for me where I was, and I had to try. So I'm okay with making kind of quick shifts and dropping. I had, again, a good situation. I was in college, straight A student, receiving stipend here, stipend there, like active participator in life. But I was like, what's the perspective? I'm always long-term thinker. I'm like, I don't see this, I don't see where it's going to get me. I'm from Russia, from Siberia, like a great city that, sorry if anyone is from there, but nothing exciting there. So I just had to take this risk, because why not? Like it just can't be. So obviously I had quite a big baggage to, do the healing on, and I think I'm in a pretty good shape, but I don't want to idealize my situation. It's still continuing. But what I want to bring into you is that this theme of the feminine, of the painful feminine, because basically what I unlocked for myself, that I had a great fear towards the masculine. That's why there was zero of masculine in my life. No brothers, no uncles, no grandfathers, no men around. Even the house that we lived in, like an apartment building, everyone was just a grandma over there. It was just a grandma. There was barely no man. So that's how much in the subconscious our feminine was rejecting the masculine, but at the same time was doing everything for the two, right? So we were just like, like I picked that up from my grandmother a lot. So just kind of carry everything on your shoulders, persevere, blah, blah, blah. And that didn't feel good. As I already told you, later on, I realized that wasn't my path. So I did a lot of kind of healing work, and and a big part for me was through movement, actually, through embodiment. And I started to unlock my kind of personal wisdom, and I have deep wisdom from other lifetimes that started to come in as I was living on the ashram and being in this, I called it the cave, because I was in a cave. It was also, that's when I had my daughter 2 years later, and COVID happened. I was in a perfect place, in nature, just kind of with a lot of spaces around me, in my cave. And that helped me with the quieting from the society. It helped me to really tune into my intuitive abilities. And I mean like real intuitive, like psychic abilities, which I believe all of us have. It's not something special to me, especially those who come in, who come in my field and, somehow attracted to our work. It's just a matter of unlocking them. And because we have a lot of stimulation from outside, it's very hard to hear that, because it's very thin. That voice is very slight and thin, it's you have to train to hear it. And but I was able, and that's something that I keep kind of bringing into my work. And this is, again, I haven't spoken so much about this because it feels like a normal thing. And that's another normal thing that I always felt like, until the book Secret came out, I was like, whoa, that was a secret? Because from the early childhood, I saw the power of the mind. I saw how I, in extreme poverty, would want something and would imagine and feel it, and then that would come into my life. It was like, and it was humans and also things, you know, what a little kid, like a 7-year-old would want, right? You know, like a backpack or something, or skirt, because obviously I never had any of this, and it would come from nowhere, it felt like. So I felt that. I also wanted my mother to stop drinking, but, you know, stop drinking is still reinforcing the idea of drinking and rejecting. So obviously that state, you know, that understanding of the manifestation deepened later on with practice and with life, that it's not just like what you consciously desire, as we already, many of us know. But that all of that path, it kind of came to build me and what I offer right now. And I'm kind of stubborn in the sense that I just keep doing that and try to articulate what it is, and slowly, you know, attracting the attention of other women who may be in a similar position or a part of it. Because I do believe that this is very noble for us. I already said that, noble for our society, because the masculine way of learning is show me your credentials, then I will believe you, then I'm going to, you know, learn from you. I'm going to learn from the best of the best of the best, all the status things, right? This vertical relationship. And the feminine is to be in the field with another person, and we don't need to look for the perfect one, because no one is perfect. That's already vertical thinking, that somebody has to be perfect. But we need to find those that, okay, here I can receive this piece. Here I can receive this piece, because you are going to be your unique self. You will never find somebody who is just like you. So when we even look at role models, it's not one person that combines all of the things that you want. And if she doesn't, then she's not your role model. That's bullshit. It's never going to happen. We want to collect the different ones that inspire us and find what is it that specifically in this woman that I'm inspired by, or in this, or maybe men even. It doesn't have to be just a woman. But for us to be in the field with another woman, we sort of like suck in and unlock those wisdoms, because that's the difference. If masculine is the one that goes out in the world, achieves, creates, and then receives the wisdom from outside, the feminine is from within. The more because she's already complete. Not going to go too deep into that question because it's a big topic, and it can create a lot of other kind of branches to talk to. But if you're ever interested in that, I'll talk about that. So that's why we talk about the womb. That's why we talk about the heart, and all of those things are really important for the feminine. Of course, her, you know, her discernment, her third eye. So another thing that I want to kind of say that I really felt is that sometimes it is to be in the field with other women, right? That's why I collect, you know, all of us. But we technically can receive information and codes by just intuitively connecting to them, because it's in their field. And when there's a sense of generosity, if she's already in this kind of like, I've been here, she has those codes in her field, and we can energetically connect. That's a little bit of an advanced way, and you may not understand how to do it, but theoretically it's possible. Like, we can receive downloads from women who we've never talked to, who we haven't done the exchange like monetary, but we can still receive from them. So we can learn from, you know, from not just learn, but remember through other women. It's not learning, it's remembrance. And that's a big difference of the feminine empowerment, is her to remember herself. And of course, that's the mentorship and coaching and all of this kind of field that I'm in is important, but it's not the only one. But it's also the one that when you kind of close and you just suck it, in with the person that you know, for this time being, then it unlocks in you so much quicker than when you are like, you know, trying to intuitively connect, but your intuition is not developed. You know what I'm saying? So another way of healing and coming into empowerment is co-creation, because it's not a vertical, it's a horizontal relationship. So I'm going to pause a little bit here. I've been talking for so much. I want to check in with you. How you feeling? How's this? I can see Tara said she can relate. I know Tara. How are you guys feeling? How was this story? Did I put you to sleep already?
If I may say, you did not put us to sleep at all. It was a lot of information, but I think at least I'm talking for myself. I definitely was yearning to learn a little bit more about you, and just having that connection to understand, and as Tara said, relate to you. So I'm very grateful for you to share a lot of things. And you were talking about Hawaii. Every time you said several things, and I was like, oh my God, me too. And that made me feel very good to see like that somehow I can relate to your path. Yeah.
I think that's really important. I'm remembering right now that I've, you know, long time, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, when I thought that enlightenment only happens to like rare few. And then somehow I'm so grateful in my field, right? I saw like just this young woman, she wasn't in my field physically, but online. And she was talking about some of her spiritual experiences. And I was like, oh, okay. Like that already started to bring up, because we oftentimes receive those stories about what used to work, what was the fact a long time ago. But the energy is changing so drastically right now, so quickly, then those things that we used to think are just for the rare few, blah, 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 are possible. And so when we share our experiences, we're like, oh, okay, like I can relate to that. So there is something else for me. And then we start tapping into our own direction and our desires and where we want to go. And heart space is really important for that. So thank you so much, Laida, to speak on this. Thank you. So I'm going to add a little bit more before I kind of open the space for you to maybe ask a question or do any sharing or anything like this. I want to add that this topic of the horizontal and vertical, I want to speak more to this. It's an evolution of consciousness. Vertical is not wrong. Horizontal is not right. Only vertical would think that vertical, you know, that horizontal is right. That means part of you is still vertical. I'm going to unpack this. Because now we're kind of getting into more of the philosophical stuff that I love, but I know I can kind of get, you know, packages. And you can just put like a sentence for yourself that you want to like later to meditate and look at yourself, you know, at your own time. So, and I actually shared a post yesterday, thanks to my beautiful friend who kind of, the discussion with her inspired me to kind of deep into that. And so if you live life through the vertical perspective, and that's just the perspective, that's the program, that's how we look, right? It's like if I look, I don't know, if you look at this cup and I tell you this cup has a handle, you're gonna be like, what handle? What are you talking about, right? But I see the handle on my end. So the same way with the perspective. So, but it has the foundation, the perspective changes and it widens with kind of the evolution of consciousness. So the vertical is more of like the animal perspective, because animal look at the chain, right, of the food chain, you know, the strongest, the weakest, all of that works there, right? You know, the leopard is, you know, catching the gazelle and eating it, and there's nothing wrong in that. But in our human, ooh, start the music, sorry, my favorite. In our human life, we have a choice. So here's the vertical one. Oftentimes, when we are in the vertical consciousness, then we live from the state of superior, inferior. And here I'm going to tell you, most of us still have seeds of that. So don't think I'm so like, oh, enlightened. So be honest with yourself here. Anytime you judge better or worse is already superior, inferior. So somebody, you know, in this case, when you take the position of power, that can be dangerous, right? Because you already have the sense like there's somebody better or worse, that, you know, we can see the corporate world is all about that kind of, you know, even some family dynamics, and the governments, you know, sort of like, because the vertical relationship, they create codependency, they create compromise, they create manipulation. It's like, I want you to be this way for me, then you do, you know, then you do that, because it's not in the heart level. It's more like if we talk about just the three lower chakras without heart being integrated. By the way, I love the 3 lower chakras, we love them, but we want the heart to be integrated. So, and in this way of thinking, you're either obsessed with power because it gives you a sense of safety, or you are afraid of power, you reject power, you think power is wrong. It's still the same, it's polarity of it's two sides of the same coin, right? So then think, the core of this is the fear for safety. Then we need to have the power in order to manipulate others so they don't come to hurt us. So I have a Radiant group where we spent the 3 months working on the first 3 chakras, working on through this really deep embodiment work to help ourselves feel safe in this body, and, you know, safe to with our desires and with our will. Horizontal starts from the heart. We can't fully, without really integrating the 3 lower chakras, we can call it lower chakras, but it's also, you know, the states of consciousness. We can't come really into the heart. Many of us come from the top down. So we get to the heart, but we're still not connected, and we're still fall into codependency because we don't channel our power. Where's the womb, right? Where's our, you know, our Kundalini is in the lower, it's in lower centers at the bottom of our spine. So when we don't connect to that power, we don't have the way to channel power. We may have all these great ideologies, we may be upset with how the world is, but we have no power to change anything. And so we fall into this infantile position. I'm not guilty, there's no guilt of it, but I still work through my infantility. We fall into this infantile position where we expect others to do something for us, where we rely on others. Here's the thing, if you're not connected to your power, you are connected to someone else who is connected to the power. You can't live in this body without connecting to the power. So either it's an organization, a system that you're working for that is connected to the power in one way or another. And why it didn't work for me? Because those organizations, I saw they were connecting to the vertical powers anyways, even though they were so nice and beautiful, right? With the intention, with the mission, but it didn't feel right. I wanted to connect to something that was, now as I'm looking back. But even if you work, you know, for education system, right? There's, you know, it's all vertical power still. It's not horizontal. Or, you know, if you're working for a corporate world, and it's not wrong or right? It's just you kind of understanding this, and you have maybe a map ahead of you, or maybe, like I said, you may live with more questions for yourself today. So so I told you victimhood, right, is a very clear sign of the vertical, meaning that when it's either someone needs to be saved, we feel somebody is, you know, is being attacked and they need to be saved, and then we kind of fall into that rescuer mode, right? Because it's victim, perpetrator, and saver, rescuer, this triangle. And that triangle will always be there unless we step out. And where do we step out? Any ideas? How do we step out from this? Where do we step out? How do we find the, like, where's the kind of that portal, the door to this never-ending cycle of suffering? You can write in the chat, or, you know, maybe just talk. Is it a good question, at least? Like, not like, is it like a valid question to ask?
So self-empowerment.
And what does it mean?
Connecting
Like, how does
to
it look practically? You know what I'm saying? Because, like, you see in somebody is being, you know, like a victim, like somebody's suffering, and that hurts you, obviously, right? We're not delusional over here. We don't want to say like it's not happening. We don't want to numb ourselves either. But then, like, it is self-empowerment. I do. It's like, if we can. But how, what exactly do we do? That's a really, really important question. So here's the thing, where does the self-empowerment come from? The answer that I found for myself, that it comes from your soul. I will explain. If you are in your physical body, if only that you see is the physical body that's suffering in front of you, and you think they don't have a choice, then you think they are a victim. If you expand from the ego identity into, you know, you take yourself out and you look from the higher perspective, I call it rise above. That's a big part of my work, by the way, especially in my privates. I call people to expand and to start seeing the situation from the above, and this is where we take on the creator state. It is not helpful for another person when you're not in the creator state. I'm not saying you have to be just selfish and just take care of yourself and don't mind, you know, others, but you can't really help you. Like, you know, in that triangular, like, you know, loop, you're not getting out. So you need to come out and become a creator yourself. That's the self-empowerment for me, because your resources are coming from your soul. Your wisdom is coming from your soul. It's not from some sort of, like, I don't know, the book that you read. The book just helps you to remember what you already hold within. The groups, the coaching, it all helps you to remember what you hold within. So your power is in your soul, is in your expanded being. But then we also don't want to get stuck there. Oftentimes, right, in our spiritual community, we can kind of get stuck to, oh, okay, it all doesn't matter, you know, suffering is not real, let's just meditate. And then we're not on earth for that, I believe, right? I believe we're not on earth for that. I believe on earth we are to blend the two, to bring the spirit and be the creator in this freaking physical form. It is extremely difficult. Extremely, because this physical form is very, like, inertia is all over. It doesn't want to change. It just goes the way it was going. So if right now we're in the time of transformation, then you can see this matter has been going in one direction for a very long time. How strong of a spirit do you need to have to be able to turn this matter into a different direction. That's the empowerment, I believe. That's the power. That's where you can control, actually. That's where you have the choice to not just be an animal in the, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But that's the game. It's not like, okay, yeah, you know, it's like the strongest is the weakest, whatever, right? It's okay, it's part of life. We also, when we get to the horizontal level, we also understand that there is no like, this is wrong, like we're looking down on those people. When we do look down, we still, you get it, right? We still have the vertical programming in us, which is not wrong, which is not something we have to be ashamed about. It's just something to notice. It's continuous meditation. When we notice something that we don't want to choose, how do we create, right? I talked to you about the power of manifestation is what we focus on, consciously or subconsciously. So we need to have really deep roots into our subconscious to see that we're creating a whole lot of suffering just through our beliefs. And those beliefs are, of course, carried from lifetime to lifetime. So that's I don't want to scare you, like, it's a big chunk of work, but it's exciting because the more power, the bigger the task, the more power we are given. The bigger the challenge, the more resources we're being sent. But it's gradual. First, we have to learn how to take care of this, right? Without so much of a compromise. That's the ideal path. Then we have to learn how to take care of, you know, like spread our impact to the ones closest to us, our children, our family. Then even, you know, further into the community, then even further into the world. That would be like the natural way, because you are the sun. Somebody said sun is the power. You are the sun, you're radiating the power, so that touches everyone. But you can't be a black hole and be powerful in that way, right? Like, so we constantly, so what practically, what does it mean? How to come into empowerment? We have to look for where do we have those holes that drain our energy. And those are the blind spots that we rarely see because we don't know what we don't know. And that's why we go into, you know, working with other people, because they can help us see some things. And we have to be emotionally mature, because this is where our ego hurts so much. What do you mean I'm not doing something right? I am not the nice person? It hurts. And it will continue to hurt. But this is where we don't want to let a little kid who we love and adore to run around with a gasoline tank and a lighter, because it can create a lot of destruction, not only for that person, but for the others. That's why we, like, my approach, and I always will say, it's not about criticizing. I'm so much in this field of criticizing the ego, of like hating it, or I want to completely get rid of it, or it's like wrong. And then it's like we're hating on the little kid who just who doesn't know differently. But it's also not letting the ego run its game, because it's not fun, let's put it that way. So that's why we need to build this connection of the inner, you know, power of the soul and the ego. And to me, it's through unconditional love. But unconditional love is not like I accept and I love everything about you. Unconditional love is the love of the soul. Is that how can I go beyond this, you know, how can I love myself so much that I can move through this inertia of life? This is where we're actually channeling the power. Is like when we're lifting a really heavy weight, but then that weight later on is not so heavy for us anymore because we got stronger, and so we're given more power to grow more. Where are you with that? How is this landing? Does it bring you any insights? Does it bring you any questions, like something like a food for thought?
I love the weight analogy. I thought that was very like a great way to visualize the idea of getting stronger in your core sense of self and like later incarnations of it, that it can take on more and more and more. It was an adept visual.
Mhm. Thank you. And the thing is that it's like, it's not just like, I'm just gonna bulldoze over everything and I don't care, right? Because there's no heart in there. That's the beauty. It's like the most strength we can have is our vulnerability. Our vulnerability to see shit about ourselves and to acknowledge it and to take responsibility. So for a woman, if I go back to what makes her fulfilled, if practically, because I'm all about bringing the spiritual concept into the practical life, she needs to, in my strong opinion, right? I take it or leave it or take parts of it. She needs to be independent, and meaning not dependent for her survival on someone else, by doing something that she and involved in life, meaning that she can receive the resources from life through channels that make her feel fulfilled and not just drained, meaning that she does things that she enjoys doing for the most part. And then kind of like the small part of like, and there's still discipline, but it's not like the 8 hours of the day I'm doing something like I have no idea what I'm doing over here. Why am I here? And it's great, it's the struggle. And there's, for me, office work was that, but it doesn't mean that it's for all of the world, most likely not. And it's because it's not something to look down at, you know, like when you're in the corporate world, in like, that's like, let's leave all the corporate world behind, not at all. But it's for you to find what it is for you that makes you feel like, okay, content. And you also know that it's growth. It's not like you're going to be here forever, and you can still find the ways to fulfill your resources and you don't feel like you're burning yourself out, then it's perfect. And then you also have the time to work on your blind spots to see where else you're not claiming the responsibility. So it's basically come out of this infantile position where you can take responsibility for yourself physically and also others through doing something that you enjoy. That's my path. That's my goal, to help, you know, myself do that. And then also to go into, you know, and share those quotes with those who may want to have something like this. Where's the line between vulnerability and weakness when a woman becomes emotionally too dependent on others? I think you answered that. You answered that, Tara. Emotionally dependent on others. The thing is that, here's the thing. Vulnerability is our ability to open our heart despite of whatever may be received. That's vulnerability. It's not controlling other people's reaction. Vulnerability is me, like that power is going, right? And it's coming into the heart and it wants to say something, or into the throat, and it needs to express itself. And that's very of the feminine power. And then she does it. How she's received is not up to her. The weakness is when she depends on being received. Vulnerability is when she's like, okay, she knows she has to be true to herself. By the way, I love this question. She knows she has to be true to herself, so she can't, you know, continue to like, you know, numb herself. So she speaks, and then she watches how she's been received. And if she's received in a way that makes her feel good, in a state where she feels really she was hurt to that core, right? And that person was able to expand. By the way, vulnerability is often about speaking something that's uncomfortable for another person, because that's why they're afraid to be heard, to be not received, right? If I say something, I'm not sure how you're gonna react to this, that's vulnerability, because otherwise there's no vulnerability if I just know how you're going to react to it. So But then if she is not received in the way that she wants to, she's not treated, then she makes her choices in accordance to what she wants. She says, that doesn't work for me. There's no shame, there's no guilt, there is no, this is the wrong person. It's just, this doesn't work for me. I'm not here to change this person. I am just to stay strong into my vulnerability, expressing it, and attract people who, you know, who is in the same kind of way. But here we also want to understand with the boundaries and the emotional, like this emotional dependency, is that the other person, that's the emotional maturity, the other person doesn't need to be always available for our emotional stuff. And doesn't make them wrong. Because that's more of a child position, right? Mama, 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 I heard I have a boo-boo. The mature person also sees the situation of another person, also sees the, you know, from the higher perspective, also sees their soul. I mean, there's lots of perspectives we can look from. What is the difference? Is there another one? What is the difference between vulnerability and oversharing? Well, all of those things, and then does oversharing exist in the horizontal relationship worldview? What's oversharing? Define that for me. Because oversharing already has a negative kind of connotation to it. So this is more of a question of boundaries and something that we're going to learn only through practice. And I know this for myself. When you haven't been heard or seen, or no one have ever acknowledged you for anything good, you would want to receive that attention. And sometimes you may go over the board. Are you able to forgive yourself in those moments? Do you have the community of people who have who are also able to see that this is not, you know, fully like, you know, can also not react to whatever, if there's something negative that came through. I think that's kind of what we're growing to do. Does it make sense? Sharing both that both parties are comfortable with. Comfortable is not the topic of vulnerability. Vulnerability is uncomfortable. Possibility of oversharing, yeah. So comfortable is not necessarily, staying comfortable is the ego. What we need to be able to, and this is where we have to connect to that intuitive guidance, that intuitive connection that I'm not going to be able to do for you. I can help you develop yours, but I can't tell you how, you know, you understand that. But it's that inner urge that kind of says, you have to say this. And you may be like stupid and stuff like this. And the beauty that I experience in my life, I'm grateful that I have this now already, because I've been listening to this inner voice so much for so many years. It gets stronger. One, the more you listen to it, the more you, and how do you listen to it? Not just listen to it and do something else. You listen to it and you do what it tells you to do, like quit again, move to the US, you know, leave this, you know, safe job, etc. Then it gets stronger and stronger. And you get more, it becomes more tangible, like you can trust it more, you know, like, but it's not going to be like a perfect. When we're expanding into the unknown, when we're growing, it's not a known world. So I'm not going to give you some sort of sense of safety, because they're just going to be still playing with the ego. That all, you know, no, you're going to mess up. You're going to overshare, whatever definition it is. You're going to feel rejected. Maybe you will be feeling rejected for, you know, maybe that would be a projection that of yours that you're feeling rejected. Maybe it will be truly you will be rejected. You're going to have to find, that's the dance. Does it make sense? Like, I know there's no, you know, and I won't be able to give you a complete answer to this. But I want to just finish up on this thought of like, that sense of you would have to learn emotions are not the same as the heart. By the way, this month in Radiant Community, this month, which is what this month, September, we're going to be all about heart. If you want to, welcome. It's a heart and it's an embodiment class. So it's not just me telling you, like, it's not like a session like this. I'm going to be giving you practices. I'm also going to, giving the group like information, but it's a lot about the embodiment and unlocking that kind of stuff that I'm trying to explain, which I don't have words for because you have to feel it. Because how do you separate emotions and the intuitive voice, the urge? Right? That's also difficult. You have to develop it. It's like, can I give you the six-pack? I can't give you the six-pack. I can show you how to get there. So since we got to this, the Radiant Community, we meet only 3 times, but we'll go deep and it's 1-hour session. You can watch recording if you want to. It's $60 for a month. You can unsubscribe anytime, meaning if you don't want to stay after because after the heart, we're going to go into the throat and then etc. right? Like each 1 month, each chakra, and it's not some basic information that you already know about the chakras. It's like deep embodiment of you really unlocking and healing. And it's also a women's group. So there's this kind of like women's support and sisterhood. So, but yeah, like how do you define that the difference between just an emotional, and you will go into the overboard because you're the feminine, and you would have to learn to create the inner masculine boundaries of your own, where he can go with you, your inner masculine can go with you and expand and hold you even in this mess. Bye, Sarah. We're coming close to the end too. Hi to the babies. She has 2 little babies. Well, one really little and another is not so. So what was I saying? Oh, the holding the masculine container, your own masculine container. Can you create a sense of safety for when you fuck up? For when you overshare? For when you and the other person feels hurt? Are you able to create that sense of safety? That's also the inner child and, the parent, that you're like, oh my God, I did something, like I shouldn't have said so much. Can you first nurture yourself to be like, okay, not the end of the world, but also then, and I mean, there's more, of course, it's not so dry. That's self-love. How it's not, self-love comes in only in the perspective of when there's no love. Otherwise, it's like, well, we wouldn't know the difference. And when you have that strong inner masculine and feminine, then you will start attracting people who also have that strong inner masculine and feminine, who also can take care of that, little baby within, and then also be able to claim the responsibility and acknowledge for when they went over the board. Usually after some time of integration and thinking. And all relationships, I mean, like in long-term partnership, we know it's like partnership goes through crisis. And every time we open our heart for with vulnerability, that's an opportunity for growth, because another person is going to be expanded. The relationship will be expanded. Is the nervous system able to handle it? And if it's not, then it's not wrong or right, but maybe you need someone whose nervous system is able to handle, and you can do it for them. You guys can just unmute yourself. We're now like 8:30. I did my sort of like the official presentation. Let me see, did I want to make sure that I said everything about the horizontal. So just to finish up, the horizontal, right, perspective, the power is just your life force, right? So the power is not the tool to manipulate others to get something that you want, because you are in the center of you are a black hole. you're not connected to the original power, right? In the vertical, you're not connected to the power, the source, but you're connected to the power through others. And so in this horizontal, the power is just your life force and the necessary fuel. This is where we understand that power is necessary. If I'm not on my own power, then I'm on someone else's power, on government's power, other people's money's power, because money, power, it's all, related, of course. It's just the manifestation of power, but it's not wrong. And it's also the impact that you can create. When you understand that you have this sort of like horizontal relationship, then you can co-create, you can create impact, you have the power to change something, not only within yourself, but also with others. And then you no longer in dependency of, with others. In codependency, of course, we're all interdependent. We're not single, particles in space. And that's the horizontal. We are interdependent, we're co-creating our experience. And here you respect individuality. What I said from the beginning, right? I have a strong opinion, but you don't have to disagree. You don't have to agree with that. And you also don't have to argue. Can you expand your mind? And maybe with me, it's easier for you, but with somebody who's like different, can you expand your mind to like receive that part of reality is also true? That's the only way out of the duality game, what I was, saying earlier. And that's when you're going to feel uncomfortable. Because going beyond the comfort zone, going beyond the ego that's known to you, the one that keeps you safe, but also limited, and oftentimes in this kind of codependent relationships, it's uncomfortable. So the higher expression of the horizontal, because I think many of us over here on the horizontal, but the higher expression of the horizontal is when we continue to purify our consciousness, where we accept the vertical. We accept the vertical. We're not in rejection to the vertical. It's difficult. So let me quickly read some messages that was sent here while you ladies thinking of maybe some questions. If you want something personal, because now I know we spoke a lot about the concepts, but if you want to get more like actually personal stuff, this is where we can actually get somewhere. Otherwise, it's all hypothetical. I need to get going, Sarah said. She's gone already. But can you give some ideas on how to connect with our personal power? Any ideas? Ladies, let's open the space. It's important to I know I gave so much, but right now you can just forget about everything. How do you connect to your personal power? Because this is a concept that you all from the beginning were kind of answering to.
If I may say, personally, I think my way to connect would be through dancing. Just, I guess, activities that makes me feel feminine, that makes me feel, yeah, like I said, attractive, that makes me feel, I don't know, sexy. And that makes me feel strong as well. So that could be also working out. Working out really helps me. I've been doing that for like a month straight, and I feel the difference where suddenly I'm like, I can achieve anything, so that's, yeah.
Yes, Yes, it's very much the body side, because if we're talking about, you know, human experience, that's why I do the embodiment sessions. And when we were on the root chakra, this was one of the biggest things, like you just have to move, because you are given more when you're using it. If you're not using it, you're not given more. So here's so let before I talk about the kind of my reflections, let me read Isabel say, I grow food and medicine, create nourishing meals and health tonics from this. So again, right? Very connected to earth. Clearly, body is the earth, right? It's nothing but the earth. It came from the earth directly through all the, you know, us eating all this food. So it is something going back to the origin of this physical body, what it needs, right? What it needs to thrive. When doing some sort of power work, workout actually helps, because it starts to like pump your energy. We have, you know, tantric embodiment practices that we do to start activating that. The one is when we contract the lower pelvic, the pelvic floor, right? It's really important. Even right now, if you can start contracting your pelvic floor muscles, starting from like start contracting your anal muscles while you're sitting down. If you're going to do that, it's going to start pumping more energy, because this is where your life force is all the way down there. Most of us right now are all in the head space. We're very disconnected from the body. We're also like emotional, so weak, everything, energy is just draining. So this is a combination. One is physical, right? We need to make sure that we're pumping the energy. We're doing some sort of, you know, physical kind of work. And we look at where that power needs to go, because we're given more power when we need to spend it somewhere, when we need to direct it somewhere. So having some goals, something that is more concrete, right? So that's the direction. From where, right? From where? And the third part is to look for any leakages where you're draining the power, because obviously you get in the power, but then it's being drained. Looking for the leakages, and that's why we want to work with the pelvic floor. We leak a lot from the lower centers, because we're also spiritual, so like, oh, you know, and then we're just like not fully with our freaking feet on the ground. And of course, anything water, you know, and earth related. And that's already something that where you will be discovering yourself more. Like some things will be channeling more power for you than some other things, and that would depend woman by woman, different time during her woman's cycle, and also during her life in general. It's a dance. Thank you for all the questions. Who else wants to just, you know, kind of unmute and talk? If you don't have any questions, you can just, you know, share what's your takeaways. It's really important to contemplate on this. Like, what's your takeaway from today's session? What are you bringing with you? What do you want to continue to unfold? Please share.
Sorry again. Actually, I do have a question before I think I talk about the takeaway. It's a personal question about my relationship, my romantic relationship, and about feminine and masculine energy. So I'll give you just a quick background, I guess. The man that I'm seeing has a very strong feminine, and I have a very strong masculine energy. It happens that I do hold the space of like a caretaker, like making the decision, making the planning, like doing all those sorts of things. And while he is a very strong man physically and mentally, I'm also older than him, so there's this sort of imbalance, and I can see that for him, it's like it's starting to come between us, I believe, in our relationship. Me having that much power, me being so independent, and him relying on me more than me relying on him. So here's my question. How can one in that kind of situation shift the dynamic, and like we also often talk as like allow the men to lead, which I'm very open to do. But I'm not sure how to change this dynamic now between him and I. Yeah.
And now you can close your eyes. And if this question kind of, resonates with other women, you can also drop into the space or just hold her in, in her wisdom. And you can slowly sort of like travel down from the head, the one that had the question, and the silver lining along the spine, traveling down to your lower belly. Relax your lower belly, let it drop out. Inhale, feel how all of the resources from your head space are traveling back to you, all of the channels of energy, all of this externally oriented state is starting to come inward. On the inhale, you're bringing those cords of energy in. On the exhale, they're traveling down. In, the energy is traveling back from the world into you. That's your energy that you've been sort of putting out. And now out, traveling down, activating the downstream of energy. With a great focus around your lower belly. Feeling very strong in your seat, very grounded, just like a big mother. Relaxing your hips. Taking all of the space that you need. Your head is now in your belly. Now place the seed of the question there. And see if there is a response. What do you sense in your body? You can keep the eyes closed and just state what's happening. Sensations, emotions. Maybe a thought.
I feel like if I feel like I'm operating maybe out of fear, like me holding so much space and not necessarily allowing him to take take that role of caretaker of me is because I fear that he might let me down. And so far, I've always had to be the caretaker. So
What
I-
happens when he, sorry,
no,
can
go
you
ahead.
finish?
No, I was just gonna say that yeah, it's my fear of vulnerability, of being vulnerable, and if I rely on someone and they decide not to want that job as a caretaker or caring for me, I will be crushed.
What happens? So now stay in the state, right? What happens when he lets you down? Let your body show you the reaction.
Well, disappointment,
Feel
loneliness.
it. Feel it.
Yeah.
Let it feel, let yourself feel it, because this is not a reaction that comes in just because of this relationship. This is a deeply stored fear of the collective, you personally. Where is the disappointment in your body? Where do you feel it?
Mhm.
If that's the strongest emotion right now, or if there's something else.
Mm, in my belly, I guess.
Can you describe it?
It's just, when they talk about having a knot, and I've been feeling that a bit this week, so this is familiar, that fear of, I guess, abandonment and being like not wanting to be alone, but having to be alone. And that feels like hopeless and yeah, scary.
I'm taking this pose so that you feel this and you let the emotion just move through you. Sometimes it feels like it's paralyzing and it's amplifying and it's getting so strong. But those are always waves. And as the peak comes, it's going to start coming down, and there may be another peak. What's really important to understand is that this fear lives in your body. And whatever is in your body, you will be creating outside of you. So we want to be able to move the things that are in our body, not just to think about them, to feel them. And then every time we do that, there is more spaciousness created. As they say, feel to heal. We could stay much longer over here, but because I have to be mindful of the time. Before you open your eyes, I want you to just, without even speaking of it, make a promise to yourself that you will come back here to this part of you that is scared. She doesn't know if she can trust the man. So you understand that this is not over and that she will be seen again. And you want to build that connection with her. You want to hear her more. Right now, you're just taking a pause. And you appreciate that she spoke to you. So you're starting to build this loving relationship. And when ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you for going there with me. So this is an example of where I could have given you my answer, and I can clarify right now. But the answer staying on the head, it's like, how would you this, how would you that? Most of the just go into one ear, get out from the other. When you, with your wisdom, you see that you have your wisdom, you had the answer that you put in your words, but it's pretty much the same thing that I was going to say anyways. And then you were able to tap in onto the root issue. Because the how, theoretically, how do you want to, you know, if you're too much in the masculine, he's too much in the feminine, you want to cultivate more of the feminine, and then either he will be kind of like his masculine is going to kind of match up, or you're just going to match to another person who will be a match to you energetically, right? Make sense? How do you cultivate more of the feminine you trust? Scary to trust. But here's the thing. There's really no choice for you. Because deep inside, you already feel lonely and abandoned. And so if you trust, you may have a different experience. And maybe with this person is going to be the same, but it's wisdom. And just for yourself, because you've given yourself a chance to live and not to be dead in this body, because if you can't trust, you're dead in the body. I know it sounds very harsh, but a part of you knows she's not fully living. And you long for her. And when that longing becomes so much stronger than the fear, while also building that nurturing relationship with the part of you that is scared, right? Developing more understanding about her, not trying to get rid of her, but to also hear her story. And obviously, you know much of it, but it's a deep collective fear of the feminine, because we have been let down. We have been let down by the masculine over and over and over and over and over again. And we need to feel all of the excruciating pain of being let down, because when we don't feel that pain, we stay in the numbness. We become numb. We become like, I'm okay by myself. No, you're not. And not because of him, because he's so wonderful, but because you want to believe, you want to expand, you want to leave something else. Of course, you use discernment. You don't just do it with the douchebag, right? It's like, you have to, be careful with that. You don't just like open yourself to whatever. That's where your inner masculine and the feminine come in. But you have to go into the unknown. You have to trust. You have to forgive them for letting you down. And I'm not gonna tell you all the answers because I went through this path, and you can see something of the feminine there. It's not just, oh, those masculine, they forgot, you know, they abandoned me and they didn't protect me and etc. Because we carry a lot of that memory. The feminine is involved in this equation, and she played a role too. And so it's sort of like, okay, we're gonna move past. Again, not ignoring the pain, we have to feel it, but also we're going to start creating something new. And only you can start. This is where the feminine leadership, I love that we're completing on this one, because that's the feminine leadership that the world needs right now. Feminine leadership is the leadership from the place of vulnerability, where she trusts, even though all of the reasons showing that she shouldn't. But what else is left? The cycle will never end if she won't start trusting. And of course, there's many other things. She has to trust herself, you know, that blah, 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 all of that stuff. But you got the seeds of it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being so brave and so vulnerable and so beautiful. And the trust is the heart. So again, from my deep belly, I invite you to the Radiant community. If you want to tap in deeper into the heart, it's not the comfortable place to be currently, but it could be the most delicious nectar. Let me see. No questions. How is everyone feeling? How are your takeaways? Everybody has a takeaway? You want to share it before we go? It's been a long session. Take something from today, like literally, don't just like take something, make a mental note, something you want to ponder upon, something that a commitment you're making for yourself. Don't let this just be a stream of information that goes into one ear or another. You have to ground it into your physical body, into your practical life. That's the beautiful divine union, the sexual experience of the masculine and feminine within and with the world. Okay, last chance to say anything. You can even say thank you.
Thank you so much, Leela. I feel like I feel blessed to be a part of this. And thank you for sharing about yourself. I don't know, is it Lai? How do you pronounce it?
Laide.
Laide, thank you. And I guess I'm walking away with with many new perspectives to ponder on and feel out, and so that's all.
Thank you, Nina, and you know, I love you.
Love you.
Hi, Leila.
Hi, Sasha. I saw you joined just at the last moment, right? I think.
Yeah, I just want to.
Celebrating life.
I'm actually celebrating. I think somehow forgot that today is the full moon, and I was busy with things. And it's actually my full moon. It's a full moon in Pisces, and that's where my moon is. And today was an extremely, wow, challenging day for me. But in every regard. But I did manage to, call in as I was going to my old place because I was moving also. I was so glad that you guys still kept going because I wasn't sure until what time you will finish. And I just wanted to, it just was nice for me to ground in the, strong feminine container, like after this like whole day of, it was a lot. Yeah. But it was so good. Just, I kind of did my dinner. I got some good wine for myself to like say goodbye to my old apartment. So having a bit of a grieving here, but it was so good just to hear your voice and to feel this like strength and at the same time love that you have for us, this feminine strength. So I just wanted to say thank you. And it was also amazing to witness you in your power, in your beauty, in your confidence, in your leadership, in your kind of, you're walking the talk. So it was amazing to see you in that way. And I'm just really grateful and inspired and really, really happy for you and for anyone who will be working with you this past. And partially, I'm also working with you this past. So just wanted to acknowledge that I see you, I witness you, and it's really amazing and inspiring. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sister, for receiving. It's fun because my sun and Mercury is in Pisces, and I'm having an amazing day. But another woman who was here earlier with the moon Pisces, and I'm pretty sure some of you also have some Pisces, energy, like I said, because I attract people like that. She also had a challenging day, so. But it's also, it's a lunar return for you. Lunar return meaning from here you start in a new month for yourself. Lunar return is when the moon of your natal chart is conjunct with the transiting moon. If that's too much information, we can talk more later.
Okay.
That's your
Okay,
personal
yes.
new month. Yeah.
Okay, that's promising. We'll chat more about that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Okay, my beauties, Tara, Isabel, I trust you have also received something and you're taking something away from today's session. Thank you for participating, and I'll see you in the lunar group. Perfect way to spend the full moon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.